A very warm welcome. You are watching Counties in Focus, a show where we talk about issues that cut across different counties in Kenya. And today on the show, we are talking about education, the unrest in schools, and also the corruption in different counties across Kenya. Now, the world has just marked the Education Day on 24th of January. And 3 days later, we are talking about education in Kenya. So with me on set is Mungadia, Samson Mungadia. Karibu sana, he is an educationist.
Thank you.
Yeah, karibu. And Robbie Murimi, who is a lawyer, political analyst. Karibu sana. So the world marked, that was on Sunday, the 24th of January, marked the Education Day. And so we mark the Education Day because we want education for our students, our children. Then we are looking at what is the progress so far, what has been done, what is lacking, which areas could we improve. So when we marked World Education Day, Samson, it is after COVID-19 pandemic, after students had been home for such a long time. Yeah. So when we mark World Education Day, then it's amidst the time when there's still a lot of getting back to school life after such a long time. So then what is the situation right now?
Okay, I think education sector, of course, has received the biggest blow from COVID-19, given that the learners were at home for close to a year. In fact, it's a full academic year because they have lost 2 terms and some days in between. But I think the situation is really calm and they're back on track. They have picked up very well. Many schools have gotten back most learners. We have had reports from the government and other concerned players that we don't have much issues with the people coming back to school, getting back to the learning system. But then they have come back with the challenges, and those challenges, I think, they are things that are going to affect us for the next maybe a year or so as we try to stabilize the school calendar. So the effect of COVID-19 on the education sector is going to be long-term, it's not just short-term. But generally, I think the situation is just normal, and everybody has picked up well.
And Murimi, what would you say is the quality of education that we have? Have we improved over the years?
Well, I would want to go back to what I told you here last time. At some point, we were not talking about. We were talking about when schools were going to be opened, and the president was very categorical in telling us, "Let's not talk about when. Let's talk about how." And now, once we are getting to the how, is when we want to talk about the things we didn't do or the things we did do. Because what is happening in schools is just unexpected reaction from unpreparedness, I would say, in some of the issues that have been brought up by the students. Who wouldn't know that a sanitizer has alcohol and it's flammable? But here we are.
Okay, so given that we have the new education system, now we are at grade 4 in the primary section. So do you think then that with this system we're going to improve the quality of, say, even degrees? Because now the new curriculum incorporates skill and talent and a lot of activity.
Yeah, I think the proponents of the new curriculum and the very good intentions for our system, because if you look at the 844 system, although still it has not been implemented fully the way it should have been done at initial stages, but it has gotten to a place whereby it is no longer producing what it was expected to produce, because what we are doing is that we are pushing people through a system, and then at the end of the day they find they have spent their time, their energy, their resources, their money, but then they are not prepared for the world that they're going to. So with this new, the CBC, it focuses on learners' strength. So if, for example, my strength is in football or is in talent, let me just focus on talent. If, for example, I'm just skilled towards arts, let me just do arts, let me do craft, let me do like that. So I believe if it will be implemented properly, because I think the issue with Kenya or the issue with us as a country is implementation. It's not the plans, but just implementing them. So if it is done, It has a bright future for our country. And if it is done to the letter, all the way to the end, I believe it is going to improve the lives not only of the learners, but also of everybody, because it will be contributing to the economy in a bigger way. Yeah.
And Murimi, what would you say is the execution? We know that there are schools in different parts of this country that have very poor construction in terms of classrooms. Some even lack the classrooms. So is this the new curriculum, the execution, has it been realized effectively?
Okay, I would call it as what we saw with the launch of the laptop project. Because at the beginning is when we were talking about every child in class 1 having a laptop, then it went to palm top. Then you get to school and realize, okay, not all schools have electricity, so let's do electricity first. Then you go and find out, okay, not all teachers are computer literate, so let's train the teachers once again. Then you go and find out, okay, not all schools have an area you can store these laptops. Okay, now let's do constructions of schools before. And it's the same thing with the CBC, because in as much as it's a good project, it's a curriculum that, well, I would say is an improved from what we used to have, but it's not getting to the students in the same manner. How it's being implemented here and how it's being implemented to a student down there in Isiolo, for example, is totally different, because to the children out there who are not enjoying the resources that we're enjoying here, I'm sure you've seen Nairobi parents now have to do homework with their kids. They have to do look for things in the supermarket to buy, to create things.
Have really been involved.
Yes, and now once you have that, do you think you would be able to do that with a parent in Isiolo? So the implementation has dynamics that, well, we didn't think of them before we got there. We assumed we will get there and handle them once we are there. Yes.
So the vision is good, but then we have to think about the execution.
Yes.
How practical it's going to be.
I think that's the problem is our realism on projects that we do. We try to close our eyes to all the challenges that we might face and focus just on the good ones. When we get to the good things, the challenges come and we don't know how to handle the same. Yeah.
And now let's talk about the unrest in schools. We have discussed this issue before, and there has been a lot of violence across different counties. So with students attacking teachers or students attacking other students as well. And most recently, there has been banning of schools again in different parts. So what is the way forward?
I think the issue of students' unrest is as old as our education system. Because if you look back, there has been several commissions regarding the school unrests. For example, just maybe taking back in history a bit, since 1976, I think that's when the first commission, it was called Gashadhi Commission. We have had commissions as 1991. We had another in 1995, Kerema Report, all the way to 2008. That when the last one was done, the Koech Report, which was never made public, by the way. But of course, through media, we got to know a few things about it. So what we are seeing today is nothing new, because what I will say is that we have failed to learn from the previous episodes or incidences that have happened, because we have not implemented either of those reports from 1976 all the way to date. None of them was ever implemented completely. And now we see a repeat. Recently, as recent as 2018, 2016 again, we had the school unrest. Of course, arson now. It's not just unrest, but also burning of schools. And we had a parliamentary report again being done in 2018 about the same, but still nobody again followed up through the report. So looking at it today, we have gone back there. As we speak, I think up to yesterday, we had reported 6 arson cases across the country. Of course, they are growing. The unrest are so many. Just arson are 6, but the rest there are more than 10 so far. And I believe this is a situation that should be looked at from an historical perspective, and also it should be looked at from a present-day perspective. Historical in the sense that this thing has been happening, so what are we missing? from 1976 when and the first unrest related report, a commission, in fact, commission of inquiry, and then to date in 2020 and still grappling with the same issues. So what are we missing? We should look at it. Then the second thing, we should also look at the social setup that we are in, the dynamics. Things are changing. These learners have been at home for very long. Some of them we don't know where they were, what they were interacting with, whatever they were doing. We also have the other element of we are having criminals also infiltrating schools, because some of those learners, if somebody can do like the ones who are killing, you are killing a teacher, a watchman, whoever, then you belong to a criminal category. So it's something that needs to be taken up by every player, right from a present perspective, and then also let's interrogate what we haven't done from those reports dating as far back as 1970s.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we have seen the government say that it was going to send chaplains to different schools.
Yeah.
Morimi, how effective do you think that will be?
Well, I think it would have been effective if, again, we had tackled this earlier in our preparedness for this. Because I believe it was last year that we started the whole issue about mental health awareness. And we have been really insisting on part of our teens. And so most of these teens are the ones that we are taking back to school to complete their high schools mostly. And if the demographic is suffering from mental health issues, then the children will be the most affected. They'll be the one to exhibit the most of the symptoms that are carried back at home. And well, the chaplain thing, it would work, it wouldn't work, because at one point it's a message of goodwill. It's something that you can sell to the children.
Give
but
guidance.
Yeah, but on the other side, we are at a point of defiance. The teenage age is the age of defiance and trying to do the things that you've been told not to. So in as much as it might add on one thing, it might cause those with criminal tendency to actually be hardened by it. And at the beginning, if we had tackled it as a mental health problem in the beginning, I don't think we would get to a point where we need to be in sort of creating a boundary between the teachers and the students.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you have been, you've done an education degree.
Yeah.
So then you must have studied how to handle students in school. And from what I have gathered, talking to very many people, we don't really remember our school days very fondly, and especially high school. There is a lot of punishment. Then teachers, they don't really listen. You go to the guiding and counseling department, then from whatever you say there, that's what is going to send you home for suspension. You disclosed something that is disturbing you, and then from that, somehow the deputy gets to know, and then you're sent home for suspension. So students don't trust the administration. So there's that frustration that has been there for a long time. So then you have learned how to handle students. Have you factored that in?
So I think first we have to start from look at the word discipline, because I think from the school setup, the word discipline has a very negative connotation to it. Because when you talk about discipline in a school setup, people think of that kind of crook boy or crook girl out there, the person who is making the noise. In fact, we have a teacher called a discipline master, and his or her work is to punish students who are doing, whatever the kind of things they are causing trouble with, which shouldn't be the focus, because in life we talk about life discipline. When you talk about personal discipline, we don't talk about punishment, we don't talk about beating, we don't talk about expulsion. So I think the first we need to change the perspective on how we look at the word discipline. We make it a continuous process, inclusive process that is positive. To me, discipline has to do with getting a person to think right from the word go, getting the person to keep on track, not just when he or she is off track to get him back, but getting them to keep on the track, and getting them to keep the focus on the right thing, not wait the moment they have done wrong for us to get them correct or to get them back to the right lane. So you have to start by redefining the word discipline, the context, in the school context that is. Secondly, what we have mentioned about maybe the guidance and counseling, I think it's a challenge, because according to the Minister of Education there is guidance and counseling, but in real sense it is not there.
Yeah, it's not very practical.
Yeah, it is not, because what happens is if you read the ministry policies that guidance and counseling should be implemented as part of curriculum, but then it is not funded. For the very long time, I think now that they are bringing the chaplains or whoever they are going to bring in, whether psychological counselors or just chaplains, is just one step towards it. So the government also needs to look at it from a funding perspective, in which we don't need to have a teacher being a counseling master, because the relationship between a teacher and a student should remain a teacher-student relationship. Then we should have somebody who is outside the teaching program or outside the disciplining program, outside the staff, to handle the issues of guidance and counseling. Because what happens is, I'm the teacher in class teaching you, and most probably you are the most cheeky boy or cheeky girl in there, and then you have to come and see me after classes to give you guidance and counseling. Of course, we'll transfer the classroom setup to the guidance and counseling office, and that's why it's not progressing. It has not been very helpful, because we don't have boundaries, and therefore it becomes very hard for people to, for children to disclose or open up to the counseling masters.
Yeah. And Murimi, I don't know if you did punishments, and so you just tell me how your high school experience was and how different you think things could be.
Well, first I feel like the story you were telling us about high school was a personal story experience for yourself.
People that I've interacted with.
But I tend to think I was part of the guidance and counseling team in school, but I was still a cheeky boy in class, and so most of the time people used to find it funny or ironical, but it's how I used to endear myself to anybody out there who's struggling in one way or another. So I don't think the problem is actually that boundary or that teacher setup coming back to the guidance and counseling setup. It was basically how you try to handle the people and how you try to handle your generation. Because the things that appeal to, I think, the one thing that we used to complain in high school was the fact that they were using old problems to solve, to make new solutions. Yeah. And you would find that they call, I think I did some memorandum last year on the youth policy, and the problems they had listed in the policy, the national youth policy, the problems listed for the youth are drug abuse, HIV and AIDS, the same things that we were doing in high school. But you fail to understand that the children, the youth of nowadays are suddenly from gambling addiction, they're struggling for cyberbullying. It's not captured in the policy because they don't believe something like that can affect you. And the things that a child who can actually get to a place and kill someone is someone suffering from internet syndrome. There's something they've done, they've played a game, it was the Shark Blue something that they were playing and killing each other. And because we fail to understand those things as problems and focus on these things we call drug abuse, I'm not saying it's not there, but is that really what is affecting the youth of right now? And yeah, so my high school experience was being cheeky and being in the guidance and counseling. You survive through. Coming from the ghetto, you had to survive. I am small-bodied myself, so my biggest defense is my mouth. So I have to use that, and
that's what you were using.
That's how I ended up being an advocate in the end.
It paid off.
Yeah.
Okay. And now we're going to speak about corruption in the second part of our discussion, but then we have to talk about corruption in schools. A lot of principals, high school principals, have been alleged to be very corrupt, hence the reason why the food is of very poor quality, it's not enough. Yeah, the dorms could be squeezed. So there is a lot of corruption that is in schools. How then can we address that?
I think the issue of corruption is just is a national phenomena, and we can't just deny it from schools. It's there. Now, it starts not only in school at the principal level, but it also starts from also the Ministry of Education, the entire system, because you look at it from the way promotions are done. There are people out there, they are principals, but they don't deserve to be principals in real sense, but simply because they have somebody somewhere or they have some money to push through, they go there. So, number one, what we're dealing with is also part of the problem is incompetence caused by corruption, because people are sent into positions that they shouldn't be. They don't have experience, they don't have knowledge, they don't have the scale to run the school. That's one. Now, coming down again to school, it goes back to our own culture as a country, because we are just dealing with the corruption not only at national level but also down there. We have had experiences of principals colluding with the bazaars and the storekeepers. For example, we have had cases of people, somebody just a supplier brings food, is just recorded in the school, is paid, and then moves out again with the same food to go and sell out there. We have had issues of principals running businesses that are feeding the school, in the sense that they give themselves the tenders and the contracts. So I think it's a conflict of interest that is affecting us really. And this one can only be addressed through goodwill of the people in the Ministry of Education, the implementing authorities, and also being looked at it from a policy perspective, whereby we should just ensure the promotion procedures are followed to the letter. We should also ensure that the people that we're giving these positions, they adhere to the Integrity Act or the Chapter 6 of the Constitution, so that we minimize the chances. Of course, they will be there, but we minimize the chances, because at the end of the day, what is happening, what is flowing out is if you embezzle the funds, the infrastructure will be poor, the food will be poor, generally the life of the student will be hard, and what we end up with is now what we are seeing, the riots, the poor quality of education. The response from the other players in the education sector also will be affected, because their input must be matched with what is coming to school in terms of resources. So I think it's an issue that needs to be addressed seriously. Yeah.
So Murimi, what is the one thing that we can do? So a principal, we know that they are corrupt, and you see that directly translates to the living standards of the students when they are in school. Because I've had, especially boys' school, I don't know which school you went to, but I know a lot of boys complain about insufficient food in school. And we know that, sometimes the suppliers, it's still the principal's other farm that supplies food to the school, so then they can get the waste. That's what they come and deliver to the schools.
So number one, as an officer of the court, I will caution you not to say we know they are corrupt, because we presume innocence.
Allegedly.
Yes. But the issue of we know they are corrupt, I would say I do not agree with.
There is corruption in schools.
Yes, and I've said this, and I keep on saying this, that corruption is not measured by the actual corruption. It's measured by perception. When you look at whatever you call how Kenya is ranking on corruption, is corruption perception index. And so by creating the perception, we entrench that corruption. I have been to boards of schools. I sit in some. I have been there when principals have been accused of doing something, being corrupt, and stuff like that. And you go and find the issue boils up to a student, a teacher who wanted to be the principal, a mother whose child was beaten and she did not like it, and it grows to something that's really not there. But because of that small dispute, we blow it out of proportion. Now, I'm not saying there's no corruption. No. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that we fail to contextualize and stereotype the schools, and by that we create the infidel cartels that we talk of, because we blow it off as you tell someone, oh, this school is looking for this and this materials. We can't apply, they've already chosen, this one is just for formality. And in the end, at the end of that period, the school doesn't have anyone who tendered to bring firewood, for example. And if they don't, what will, as if you are a principal, as a responsible principal, you announced the tender, you gazetted it, nobody applied for this. Will the students not eat? You have to find a way to get the firewood for them to eat, not because of your own labor, but because it's not there. Will you start the process of procurement all over again and tell them, now look, apply, it is not a cartel thing? They already think it's a cartel, they won't apply.
So you're saying there's a problem with the perception?
Yes, and so once we have the perception, and what we bring to the schools is something that we don't address, and in the end we will just keep on doing a cycle. we change principals, we change politicians, but the status quo remains the same. As you were saying, we started Unrests in 1976. We are still doing them now. But why are we doing that? Because we have this perception that the students believe this, the teachers believe this, and then out here we believe we want to side with the teachers because we believe that the principal is corrupt. The teachers are good, the principal is corrupt. We remove the principal, another teacher becomes the principal, and then the students believe this.
Let's take a short break. We are taking a short break here on Counties in Focus. But we'll be back to talk about corruption in the 47 counties, which we now call devolved corruption in the counties. Don't go too far.
Kibera slum. It's different and the biggest of its kind in Africa. With people drawn from different backgrounds, all united in their quest to beat the odds and change their lives. Amid a grinding poverty and neglect, theirs is a life driven by hope for survival, engineered by 3 Ps: patience, passion, and perseverance. Join us on Look Up TV as we shine a light on Kibera's untold stories.
In this life, we all walk through loss, heartache, and disappointments.
Our eyes are opened, our ears are opened, our hearts are opened, our minds are open, so that God can speak to us directly.
God is with us every step of the way.
So when you see how they were transformed through their relationship with Jesus, their encounters with God, it changes me.
Turn your 50 bob into $1 million shilling investment. Changamka and Shindagari Chap Chap with Hometel. There's millions in shillings worth of prizes to be won. Send your 50 bob to paybill number 4040153 and get a chance to win 20,000 shillings daily. And each week, one person gets a chance to walk away with a Mazda Demio and another a Beth Mobility motorbike. Remember, the more times you try, you could be the winner of a fantastic Toyota Prado. Do not be left out. Send 50 shillings to paybill number 4040153, account name Look Up TV, and get yourself a Hometel lucky number. Changamka and Shindagari Chap Chap with Hometel promotion. For more information, visit www.shindagari.co.ke. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back. You are watching Counties in Focus right here on Look Up TV. And today we are talking about the unrest in schools, marking the World Education Day, and of course, corruption across the counties. Remember, you can engage with us. The SMS number is 20374. And you can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at Look Up TV. And with me on set is Mungathia, who is an educationist, and of course Robbie, who is a lawyer and a political analyst. And on this second part of the show, we want to talk about devolved corruption. So that is across the board. And maybe just to talk about the forgotten promises. We know that we're going back to the polls come next year, 2022. And there are still a few areas, or many, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah.
So we can start from the Big Four agenda. From the Big Four agenda. So we know that there are some functions that were devolved, like the health, and that is part of the Big Four agenda. Health. And now looking at health across the board, we have nurses on strike, lab technicians, one of their very first times on strike as well. So even as we approach 2022, has the government failed, or do we still have time to realize good health coverage? Yes, Maria.
Okay, I think one, I'm not on the class that says it has failed. I'm on the class that believes there has been some progress. We started talking of NHIF cards. The government has brought that into our system for once. We've started thinking of health insurance, health policies. But our angle is quite on human factor to the functions. Because in as much as it's a devolved function, there's still functions that belong to the national government. One is the health policy in itself. It's a function of the national government. Then we have the referral hospitals, but primary health care goes back to the counties. So the most thing they can do in terms of primary health care is support the county. And there's been an issue about the health sector wanting to return back to because they believe labor standards should be brought back to the national government. And that's just a systemic issue that we boil down to water down the right to life in itself. Because I don't believe we should be arguing. Last time I was here, we were talking about the nurses' strike, and I told you I don't believe they should be at home negotiating about risk allowance. And not negotiating that it hasn't been increased, but negotiating that it should be increased further. In as much as, yes, it's your right and we want to help you get compensated for your actions as much as possible, we should not risk the right to life, not because yours is being risked, not because you are about to die, because you want more money. At a time when we are also talking about how our money is being swindled, how we are broke, how we have debt, and your solution to that is withhold services for more money. It's counterproductive from my side.
So you don't think that if we take care of our healthcare workers who are in the front line, especially now with the COVID-19 pandemic, they're the front liners. So if then they are not even insured, that was a complaint across the board, if they're not insured themselves, that if they get sick, then they have to seek services in other hospitals because they can't afford the services of the hospital that they work for.
No, that's an interesting angle, because what I'm saying is the whole disagreement is not based on that. Those were the issues. Those were the issues that were brought out. There were the issues that were consoled and decided government will do this for you, government will do this. The one thing that led to the whole dispute, the reason they can't return to work and they can't sign the return to work formula, is because risk allowance has not been increased.
But
so
do you don't think that's valid?
I'm not saying it's not valid, but do you believe that they should be withholding health services for that? In as much as we want to, yes, empathize with you, yes, we can have that negotiated, but people will be dying for you to negotiate an extra 5,000 in your pocket. All these other things have been already provided. Can we run fast with the things that were of threat to you, secure that, and then talk about the money while we are still working? That's my only concern.
What are your thoughts, Mr. Samson?
I think for me, again, I would look at it from a bit different perspective. because when these people went on strike, they didn't, the healthcare workers, all of them in fact, because also doctors were involved, although they got back later, they didn't go on strike specifically for allowance increment.
Yeah.
It's an issue of we don't handle issues as they arise, so they compile over time. So there were grievances, a number of them that was there, but then again also it came when they are handling the grievances, then you know they didn't really approach it at first when it arose, because the issue of the increment, whether it's on allowance or whatever it is something that started popping up quite some time again back ago. It's not something that is coming up now. So I think at the end of the day is how we are handling the entire process of the entire thing. Now, them being on strike, I don't think is the solution or is the right thing to do for them to do. But then again, also you look at, because you're also talking about corruption on it, because they look at it because like these seniors or the people in the ministry, the people who are supposed to be leading by example themselves, they are embezzling and doing all these things. You know, it's a shame when you're talking about things like PPEs being lost, some in JKI in a government store kind of a thing, something just being stolen somewhere because somebody has to make money. And then you go back on the ground and tell somebody, just sacrifice your life and work for this. Of course, it comes to a point whereby they move from reason to being emotional. Because being emotional is like, I will risk my life, but then nobody will risk my life. I mean, their life for me. So why should I risk it? So at the end of the day, it comes to a point of we need to get consensus, but then we need also to get the people in authority to be serious with the things that they are doing. Because again, we have had issues with the Council of Governors, the chairman of the Council of Governors, with all that big office saying that we will not pay. No, that shows there is no goodwill from the government part. At least they should show some goodwill to this staff or the healthcare workers, and then we get an answer to that. But if you just dump because of the authority, then what is left is for them also to survive and sail through by refusing to give their services. Yeah.
And Murimi, maybe you can give us your input as an advocate. When there was the KEMSA scandal, the COVID-19 millionaires, after it was highlighted, then there were allegations, some names were forwarded. Then, so what does it mean for a case? Once allegations have been done, so then how do we go about it?
Okay.
Because now we have no information, and this is how all the scandals, a lot of scandals, go down. So there's a lot of hullabaloo about it, then it just dies down, and yet another scandal.
Okay, last time I was here, we talked about that, and I told you I always find the further state amusing on how they cover these stories, because they are not interested in the details, they're not interested in the persecution, they're just interested in the new high, the new story. Once you have information on a corruption matter, the rightful and the lawfully mandated body to handle that investigation is the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. So if you had anything, you would provide them to that. But in Kenya, we have a perception that the EACC is corrupted. The arm that we are supposed to trust to handle our corruption is corrupted. So we don't take it to them. We try to expose it on the media, on social media. So the KEMSA quote-unquote scandal, the COVID millionaires story was that the PPEs were stolen and smuggled to Tanzania. Once it hit the parliament, it hit in the Senate, we uncovered that it's not that they were stolen, they have been held at a government store by an organization that is not releasing them. Understand? So we have the problem of theft. Now we have the problem of hoarding. But we're just calling them corruption to cover the whole thing. And
isn't that corruption, though?
I'm not saying it's not corruption. I'm just saying we should stop, what do I say, cajoling and making theft look sexy and trying to balance with the word corruption. It's not. When you deal with what is there, When we were having that KEMSA report, it was a problem of, I remember when people were being accused, they were coming up and saying, okay, tell me what I have stolen. Say this and this was stolen and how much is this? Because we could not answer. We were just talking of theft, and then we found out it was not theft, it was hoarding. And so the people who are supposed to be now followed up on hoarding and withholding those equipments turned out to now pointing fingers. CEO says Mutahi, Mutahi says CEO, CEO says then again procurement, procurement says this. And once we go to that extent, now we handle it to the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution to find out what charge to investigate on, exactly what to charge them with, because we can't charge them on hearsay. Because even if you wanted to charge them on theft, there was nothing that was stolen. They just withhold. Yeah, that's the point. You claim there is no information. There is information, but we are following the wrong thing. People want information on a person who was accused of theft. Well, there is no theft, but because we are calling it all corruption, we want corruption charges no matter how, but we don't want it not to be theft. It was stolen. So from a legal perspective, I would tell you it's one of the cases where all the culprits and quote unquote people who are involved will go scot-free, because we are not charging them for anything. We just want to create a perception and force that perception in court. It won't happen. If you actually go to the root and we find out this is the problem, then let's follow the people for this exact problem. But we are just putting it in an umbrella and trying to poke holes, and you want them to come out of that side by fire, by force.
So you're saying it is a situation where the public, they want a conviction, so then they demand for...
They want a conviction, yes, on theft, and we've established there was no theft. So even if you were to charge the people, we would now start be accused of giving lighter charges to people because they support us, because they support the president. That's why they were charged with hoarding. Well, we cannot charge them with theft, and there was no theft. So in that sense, I believe we fail to handle things that in a legal perspective, looking to make money, I'll just make money because none of the clients will ever be convicted. And you guys will always be talking about there are no conviction, the fight against corruption is just by word of mouth, but it's because what exactly are you fighting in the word corruption? Corruption is just a big name to sanitize theft and abuse of office. So let's attack the abuse of office and how it was covered. Let's attack theft as theft and not hiding it in corruption and expecting it to come out as charges of theft. You want it to call it corruption in entering, but you want it to come out as theft in the end. It will not work.
And the free health care had been rolled out for a year in a number of counties, among them Chakos, Makueni as well. And now after the 1 year, then way forward, because yeah, people were even like mothers, could they be able to deliver for free within that period? So that was a test run that was done. Then after that, the government has gone silent on the theme.
No, it hasn't.
Yes. So now that there was COVID-19, so then the plans to give healthcare coverage across the 47 counties by 2022 has been frustrated.
Okay, I think the problem is we fail to appreciate the steps of policy making and the procedure to it, because in the what happens is, for anything to be done, you start by identifying a problem. So there's an aspect of defining that problem and understanding why it's there. You go to the root. People are stuck in traffic. Why? Because they're either not enough roads. Why? Because land has been grabbed for roads. Why? And such stuff. So once we identify the problem, then we start to do metrics for solutions. So how would you solve the issue of traffic? Add more roads, remove matatus from town. You take all these things. once you've decided on one, you do what we call piloting to find out the kind of challenges that you would face, which is what I was saying we did not have with the school. Because if we had done that, we wouldn't be where we are right now. So once you do that, what happened with the UHC, the Universal Health Coverage Program, is that now they did piloting in 10 counties. Piloting is just so that the technical team involved can now come back and report. So this is what it did, this is the challenges, these are the challenges we met, and this is how to tweak it so that when we roll it out for the whole country, it won't have these challenges. So they're not quiet, they're just working. They can't be working and talking at the same time.
But you know, after it was then rolled out, you know, we're supposed to give the health coverage by 2022, which is next year.
Relax.
So
That's the idea is relax.
By next year, then we're going to have universal health coverage across the country.
Yeah, we'll have a program that now can be launched to the national. We don't want the haste of, there's no hurry. Kenya is not moving. We don't want to do something that in the end will hurt you because we didn't plan it well.
Samson, then do you think the government then needs to, as he is saying, he's trying to say that we should chill out and wait for things to unfold. But then if we have been given timelines, then isn't that what we look out for?
Well, I think I tend to look at it from a different perspective. First, I must say it's a very noble idea, and I've seen it work. I've been in Machakos, I've lived in Machakos part of it, and I've seen it work there. But also I think it's the problem we have in Kenya is that we have politicians talking faster than they think. And then secondly, we have a problem of having policy without implementation. Those are two things. So what happens is that when a new government is coming in office, or they are changing term, like the case of the Jubilee government, they will promise so many things before they think how they are going to be done. So you find like we have had a pilot done for 2 years, I think. It has been run for 2 years. It has been seen it's working in some places like Nyeri, like where. But then somewhere along the way, you stop funding the entire process. Like from last year again, some counties like Nyeri to terminate it even before the pilot program was done completely. So like Nyeri to do with it, Isiolo, because it's becoming costly to the government, to the county government, because the national government has reneged on what they are supposed to be giving to the counties. So I think it's an issue. I don't believe, and I don't want to agree with my colleague here, that is something that we're expecting to be rolled out before 2022. For sure, without doubt, I can say it's just a dead process. We have hit a dead head. Why? Because if you look at it, we have not been given even the progress report of the counties that it has been being implemented. No progress report, nothing official, no official communication. Again, the counties that didn't run the pilot completely, nobody's talking about whether they are going to complete the phase for us to get a clear report or what is going to happen. So I think let's just treat it as a promise that may never come to be. But if it comes to be, I think is the best thing that can happen to Kenya.
Would I put a wager with him that if by 2022 nothing is rolled out on it, then we can come back and you can ask me those questions. Like, I don't want to predict on what will not come, because I've seen that projection work. The issues of counties terminating it before the pilot is ending are the challenges that were being looked for in the pilot. Those are the things that you sit down and analyze. So why did they terminate this? Why did these ones not terminate? What could the problem?
But the point is very clear that you are not funding us.
Yes.
So you're not looking for anything because you're not funding us.
Now, point is, if Nyeri and Isiolo were talking of funding, Machakos was not talking of funding. Machakos was talking of something different. Is either they were funded differently, or is it that the kind of demands for Nyeri and Machakos could not meet? And that's the whole essence of doing a pilot. It's to bring out all those challenges, so that by the time we are rolling out, we are rolling a program that has solutions to even those challenges that might come to the program. And that's what we've been having as a problem in Kenya, because you're in such a hurry to launch all these projects when even if somebody tells you we've been banning schools from 1976, no, just open schools. We will find out what to do when we get there. But this is a process that you're being shown We want to follow procedure from beginning to end. When we roll out universal health coverage for the country, we will have solution even for counties that will speak of less funding. We will have solutions for counties that will speak of no space, and such that counties that will have governors who are not in the same books with the president and how to handle the same. We will have solutions for that before we get there. Now, when we start criticizing them for the pilot, when we get to the real program, we will have the solutions for it.
Okay, but we'll be waiting to see the realization before 2022.
What is so wrong with launching it in July 2022?
The problem.
What is so wrong? What would be so wrong?
Failed promises. That's what Kenyans have a problem with. Failed promises.
No, I'm saying what would be the problem with rolling it in July 2022?
How practical is that? That is what we're asking.
So you believe that the president that comes next will do away with it?
No. What we are asking is it practical for the universal health coverage to be realized by next year?
How long did it take to launch Obamacare in the United States?
That is what you're going to tell me.
I will give you the homework of how to roll out a national program that involves two overheads. What I mean is the national government with its function, the county government with its function, and introducing a program for the two that will work without. So it's not just a process of dumping and, oh, we made this promise, now here, have it, go and do whatever you want with it.
You seem to be defending the government.
No, I seem to be defending a project that I know the stage it's at, and I know the steps that are being taken, and I appreciate the steps being taken because I know in the end they are for for bettering our health system and for bettering the project in itself. Because you don't just roll out a project. The things that we complain of most are because we have projects that are good, but when they come to being implemented, they have quote-unquote challenges in this end that we don't know how to address. So we have an opportunity where we will address all these problems before we roll out. Why should we hurry it?
Okay, so let's move on. And now, as we conclude, now a little bit back on education. Yes, so education across the board in different counties. People have gone back to schools. Our students and pupils are back to schools, and the Ministry of Education has, according to the COVID-19 protocols, then students have to social distance in the classrooms, and they have actually been told, then if the class is too small, then you can go and study below the trees. So are we still giving enough for students, given that they have been home for such a long time? There's still so much they have to do in a very short time.
I think one, I find it ridiculous to say the least. When you talk about people doing social distancing in school, because in real sense, I think even the ministry came to realization and admitted in the last minute that they couldn't keep up with the protocols. One, because of our infrastructure. We have very poor infrastructure. Now, I've been across the country so many places, because one of what I do is I talk to students in institutions. I would be shocked to realize that there are some places in this country whereby you will find a school that has a primary, that has a nursery school all the way to standard 8, having only like 3 well-built classes. Not really well-built, let's say 3 structures. Just that. Now the rest of the learners have either to learn in shift, they have to squeeze somewhere at a tree, or the parents have to do some kind of a shame thing to do. So I think also having had COVID for close to a year, everybody knew that we are going to open schools, we are going to require space, we are going to need all these protocols to be observed, but then nobody ever took any action. So we wait up to the last minute, and then we tell learners go and learn under trees. So in as far as we are trying to make it a practical solution, it's a practical solution that is negating the very values and principles that we ought to be giving to our education system. Okay. So I don't think that's the solution, learning under trees. Our education sector has problems, so much of them, that needs to be addressed in a long-term view and in a long-term way, not just short-term waking up telling people do this, do that tomorrow. We need to have planned from a very long time, or we need to start implementing the plans that are there to ensure that each school or every school is well equipped, they are looking good and they are well. So it's a perennial challenge. Okay. It's not over, it's not likely to be over now.
Okay, Murimi, very shortly because of time.
It's not I would not say they are addressing the wrong challenge. The challenge we have is something I call monetization of all our programs. The reason that Sonko was impeached was because of a bursary challenge, a bursary fund. A bursary fund, when we have free education, is backward thinking. If that fund was being used to equip all the schools, we would have all schools. Every CDF account has bursary for primary school, which is free. You have bursary for kindergarten, for university, yet we have help. In actual sense, we are taking money into the wrong places, and because we don't want to address the problems so that we can use them to campaign for next time. Because the school with 3 classrooms is a tale of a person who wants to vie there. I will tell you that for free, as a person who's been in this political business. That's what they do. But instead of focusing on the little money you have to equip the school, you start giving out handouts in the name of bursary to take schools from public schools to private schools, which is nonsensical to me. You can't give a bursary, government bursary, to a private school, yet you have a public school, and public school is free. So why are you creating another problem?
I think we'll continue that conversation next time. But thank you, gentlemen, for being part of this discussion. Yes, we have come to the end of Counties in Focus, and those are the sentiments of my very able panelist, Robbie Murimi, who is a political analyst and lawyer, and Samson Mungathia, who is an educationist, and he has a very profound view on different matters as well. I am Nancy Nalima. Thank you so much for watching.
We value your feedback and welcome your complaints about our programming and operations. Feel free to get in touch with us through 0700 893 542 or send us an email to views@look-up.tv. We can't wait to hear from you.